Hello, this is Professor Paul Gruhn from Quinnipiac University, ICM590 Project Planning. Well, we're into week 3 and we're definitely moving along. A lot of great work is happening on your workspace project plans. Good discussions are going on the discussion boards. I still have a little bit of catch up to do on responding to discussion boards, but that'll happen this weekend. Today's Saturday. As we go into Module 3, it's going to continue on with the topic of project definition and then introduce the topic of communication. So I want to first talk about the topic of communication. We don't have to talk too long to talk about how communication is definitely a challenge in any relationship that we're in, whether it's a couple, whether it's raising children, whether it's friends, work, church, anything. Communication is key. You've been broken up into groups of 3, except for one group that is a group of 4, and been created a group space with a bunch of group tools that you can use to complete your group assignment. Basically, the boss has said, we need to come up with a plan, come up with a 2-page document, maybe a PowerPoint, something creative. We definitely don't make it boring. Communicate in a creative way to help improve the communication here at our company. So I've gathered you together as a group. We're looking forward to seeing some great things happening. Also, there's a great video where last semester I interviewed Lynn Van Sweden on the topic of communication, and I think you'll really enjoy her points. And she really has some very good insights on the whole area of communication, and heed to her practical advice well. She knows what she's talking about. Now, the other part is in Horn's book, Chapter 4, he has a list of the various things to be thinking about in the area of project definition. So we're going to, as you read Chapter 4, as you look at Phil Simon's video, and a couple of the other reading links that are there, we're expanding your project definition and apply this to your workspace. So looking at the list that I have here, I copied it from the module. First of all is success criteria. One of the things to be thinking about for your project and your capstone project, what is it you're going to produce to be able to call it a success? For some of you, you may have a grandiose idea of what your project could be in the long term. You say, I'm going to do this website, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build a business, and this thing's going to last forever. Well, the truth of the matter is, you don't have time to build everything. You're not going to build a 747 or the next rocket ship to Mars between now and the end of your capstone project. You might call success criteria as building a framework or a proof of concept, a proof of technology, a model. I want to build something to set the starting point of where I want to go. And when I produce this, this, and this will be successful. So for instance, as we talk about my remodeling project at home, success is for us having the windows in, having the floor done, having the grout on the tile. There's this whole list of things that we must accomplish in order to have our remodeling project done. So at the end of the game, at the end of your capstone project, what is it you're really going to have? And that is your success criteria. And it cannot be abstract. It really needs to be something that says, it is going to look and perform like this. And in that, you might want to scale back your idealistic expectations to that which you can accomplish. Project context. Project context is listed in Horn in Chapter 4 as well, and that is to remember the setting in which the work is that you're performing. Sometimes you may have some great ideas, but within the context of time, the context of budget, the context of resources, and all of these various things, you might not be able to actually meet what you are determining as your success criteria. Hornless assumptions. What are some things that you just assume are going to be there? You assume that you are going to have a website created. You assume that certain people are going to show up, or you assume that there is money in the bank. You assume these things are just there. And what are those core assumptions that you just know are going to be a part of your project? What are the skill sets maybe that you assume certain team players or people that are helping you with your project will have? What are the constraints? For instance, if you are creating a film or a movie and you need certain equipment, you need certain actors, you need certain resources, you need location, maybe even the weather. Those are all things that can be constraints in creating a successful movie. Maybe a constraint is even, you say, I'm going to create this great database website. Maybe you don't know how to do that. So then knowledge becomes a constraint. Money is definitely a constraint in a lot of projects. A lot of times what happens is a project will be given a certain budget and it easily meets and probably exceeds that budget. So you have to watch the constraint of money. And each of you are definitely under a constraint of time. I have a feeling you want to get your capstone project done before you graduate. Matter of fact, I think graduation is a dependency upon your capstone. So that actually brings up another list. Another item in the list, and that's dependencies. When you think about a project like the project of getting your master's in interrelated media, one of the dependencies to complete the project that you're currently working on by attending these classes and that are in this program is completing your capstone, is completing all of the core requirements. When you completed ICM505, when you completed ICM501, when you complete ICM601, those are all dependencies upon your graduation. So what are those things that you will have to have done in your project before you can move on to the next step? You have to have film in the camera before you can shoot a picture. You have to have actors before you can have a movie. So be thinking about those, I have to have this first before I can do that. We had to buy the wood flooring before we could put it in. We had to remove the old carpeting. We had to do a lot of the prep and demolition work before we were able to do the build work. So be thinking about your project as you plan it in the terms of dependencies. Constraints. Typically constraints are, the biggest ones are resources, time, and money. So people, having enough people to do the job, having enough time to do the job, and having enough money. And if you have enough time, if you have tons of time, tons of money, and tons of people, what I've typically found is the job never gets done. So what you really need to do is understand the constraints and understand that time, money, and resources will have an impact on your final project. And what are the risks? Risks are those things that just might crop up and surprise you. What happens if a server crashes? What happens if people don't show up? I used to be a wedding photographer years ago, and in that I always made sure I had extra batteries for my flash. I had an extra flash. I had more than one camera with me, and I had plenty of backup equipment. I used to race. I was a stock car racer kind of for fun for a couple of years, and we always had more parts with us because we never knew what was going to break at the track. We never knew if we were going to get a flat tire or if we were going to need a new gasket or we're going to need a new ball joint or something. So what are those risks that you will need to prepare for as you think about your project? And in that, what you'll find as time goes on and as you do more projects in a given area, those risks will become more and more clear to you, and just sometimes it's just experience. Experience will teach you those things. Stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people who have a vested interest. Throughout the project, throughout the semester, I talk about the CEO of our remodeling project. That's the biggest stakeholder in this household in a successful project as we do the remodeling, and that's Donna. And you will meet her in one or two of the videos this semester. And then in scope and out of scope. In scope are those things that you will accomplish as a part of this project, as a part of your capstone. Out of scope are those things that might be good ideas, might be nice to have, and you'll say, you know, we're not going to do that. For instance, it is out of scope for us to repave our driveway. It's a good idea, we'd love to do it. It's out of scope to refinish the downstairs. In scope are the windows, the flooring, and those things on the upstairs level of our house. So what will happen is in your project, you will say, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do all these other things. Those are great ideas, but remember the time constraint. You do want to graduate. You do have to complete your capstone. Remember the success criteria that you created, and at that point, you'll then be able to say, you know, good idea, let's put it on the list for phase 2 or phase 3. And that will help define a good, successful project for you. So again, this Module 3 is introducing communication and getting together in a group. What was interesting is I was just talking with my daughter a few minutes ago, and I said, what should I do? Should I break these folks up into groups of 3, 4, and 5? She goes, you're making them do a group project? Ugh, I hate group projects. Well, guess what? In the real world and in real life, you will have to work as a team with each other and be successful as a group. It is my hope that your teams will work together as you come up with a great communication plan for your company. So, yes, I too, as a student, hate group projects. But now that I'm the professor, I get to assign one, but with a real reason, and that reason is part of it is learning how to communicate and working together, and especially in a world where I work with developers who are in India. I work with developers who are in Russia. I work with developers who are in California while I'm on the East Coast. How do you figure out and collaborate in an online situation where the whole team has to get together and still accomplish a goal so everybody wins? Again, the real goal of this course, the real goal of what we're doing here is to create and understand all the aspects, all the components of what make up a good plan and how to work together to implement it. Plan your work and then work your plan. Having a great time in the course. You guys are doing super. I'm enjoying your readings in your workspace and looking forward to more stuff, more great stuff happening in the class. And as always, if you need to communicate with me, please send me an email at pgruhn, paul.gruhn at quinnipiac.edu, or you can Skype me at paulgruhn1974. Thank you and have a great day.